Len, I want to start with you. You know, last week the Maryland lost its AAA credit rating from Moody's, and this is the first downgrade since I think 1973. Um, Besides the fact that probably Louis Goldstein is rolling in his grave, what does this mean for Maryland? It should be noted that Fitch and Standard and Poor's has kept the AAA rating, but this is not the kind of trend that we would like to see in the state, and I'd just like to get your observations.
So the fact is that the AAA bond rating has more symbolic than practical importance. I mean, a ratings downgrade will lead to a slight uptick in borrowing costs for capital investments such as roads and schools and bridges and corrections facilities and such. I think the Baltimore Sun did an analysis of the practical fiscal effect, and it'll probably result in a uptick of about $1 million or so within the context of a $67 billion state budget. So the dollars and cents are not necessarily what's the big story here. It is rather the fact that the AAA bond rating has for decades been the benchmark of sound fiscal management. And it's something that state leaders for decades have taken considerable pride in. The fact that we are known as a state that will pay our bills. We are a dependable and well-managed state. And so it was a jolt, and understandably so, to Maryland's collective political and governmental psyche. So there's a blame game going on here. And, the Republicans say that it's because of Maryland's less than competitive economic climate, business climate, and our propensity for raising taxes. And the Moore administration is blaming the policies coming out of Washington. I don't believe this is a binary conversation. I believe that both statements and both fact points are capable of being true at the same time. The fact is, Maryland does have a less than competitive business climate. We have been too quick to raise taxes on business, to impose draconian regulations. We have been far too dependent upon a federal government for employment and economic activity, and now that spigot is slowing down, if not turning off. So in that case, the Republican allegations have merit. At the same time, yes, the draconian policies coming out of Washington, where Donald Trump and his administration are dismantling federal agencies and relieving thousands and thousands of workers of their responsibilities, that is going to have a disproportionate impact on Maryland. So moving forward, we have to be able to control what we can control. There's not much we can do about the federal situation, but we really have to rededicate ourselves to reducing our overall dependence upon the federal government by creating a private sector business climate that, by virtue of our tax and regulatory policies, are more stable, they're more predictable, and they're just more conducive to entrepreneurship and corporate expansion.
Clay, chime in here. I mean, this at least politically good news for the Republicans?
I think so, to the extent that it helps Republicans out in Maryland, the deep blue state. I take issue with a couple of things Len said. I mean, generally, I'm in agreement with him, but I think this was a real black eye to Maryland. We were the gold standard for 52 years of fiscal soundness. We made our way through oil embargoes. We made it through the Jimmy Carter inflation years. We made it through the S&L crisis, all while keeping our AAA bond rating across the board. I see a failure of responsive leadership, I think the term is. The governor and the legislative leadership were told over a year ago, we're having you on negative watch right now. You still have the AAA rating, but you're on negative watch. And I, honest to goodness, don't see a dang thing they did to help correct that or bring it back into a path where we maintain that gold standard AAA bond rating. Setting Donald Trump and the Washington situation aside, the fiscal house just of the state is not in order. The taxes were raised, as Len said, on businesses, specifically, the electronic computer type businesses. That's a bad signal to send out. Costs being shifted back down to counties. That's a bad signal to send out. And Speaker Jones, Bill Ferguson, and the governor met with some Moody's people, and the numbers are what the numbers are. You can't do this by press conference, by signaling. Numbers are what they are, and I don't think Wall Street's fooled.
Len, back to you. Is there a way forward for the governor? Can you change this quickly, or is this something you have to live with for a while?
I go back to my time teaching crisis communication, and there is a great quote from John F. Kennedy who said that in the Chinese language, crisis is defined with two brushstrokes. The first represents danger, but the second brushstroke represents opportunity. And so, yes, this is obviously a perilous situation for Maryland. Our reputation for sound, stable fiscal management has been compromised. And I agree with a lot of what Clay said, but I will just say that according to the Moody's report itself, they did cite basically Maryland's economic underperformance and events coming out of Washington, D.C., changes to the federal government. So again, I do believe it's a combination of both of the factors. The opportunity here for Governor Moore and for his administration is to use this fiscal and economic challenge as a way to justify efforts to turn back the spigot on state spending. And I think we saw that last week when he vetoed the reparations bill. This is a terrible piece of legislation. Well-intentioned, yes. We certainly know the tortured history of our country when it comes to slavery and segregation, be it in housing, employment, travel and lodging, right on down the line. This is the darkest chapter in our country's history. Reparations is not a viable remedy. It's just not feasible. It would be, and this task force that the legislation would have enabled would have been a fast track to a gigantic blank check from the taxpayers of Maryland. And the process of determining who is entitled to receive money and in what denominations, how much, this would have turned into the biggest, most unwieldy, most politically charged, and most heavily litigated, genealogy exercise in the history of humankind. So the governor actually vetoed the bill. And I think he's getting justifiable praise for a moment of fiscal stewardship. I think he can also use this economic and fiscal challenge as a way to justify coming back to the legislature and say, we really need to make some substantial adjustments to the blueprint for Maryland's future. This massive multi-billion-dollar piece of education spending, which we don't have the money for, which the counties of Maryland don't have money for. It's well-intentioned, but we just can't afford it. So I think this is a real opportunity for the governor and for his administration to execute a reset on the way they approach fiscal policy and spending priorities. And so far, I like what we see.
Clay, could you tell me if the governor had in the past been supportive of this reparations task force?
I think reparations has always been talked about. To be honest with you, as a Republican, I think it was a bad bill. Had I been a Democrat, I think I'd have a different view. This passed 101 to 36 in the House, and all the Democrats in the Senate voted for it, I think, except one. And it was to set up a commission to study this. I don't know what the study would have concluded. I don't know that it would have been direct payments to minorities. I don't know that. As Len said, that seems to be fiscally impossible to do, but it may have recommended other things, scholarships, tax credits, and those sort of things. I don't know what it would have been. But I think that the Black Caucus has given the governor righteous indignation. A lot of the Democrats are criticizing him for this, and I think rightfully so. The idea that you would dismiss something so overwhelmingly supported by Democrats in this state is unfortunate, I think. He has alienated, just by the stroke of a veto pen, a lot of these supporters. I think it's an opportunistic thing. I think it was poll driven. I think it would have been an issue for him on the national scene, which is he says he's not running for president. All actions to me indicate that he is, and I think this was done to appease a national audience and not his own party in his own state.
Can I go back and just address something that Clay said about the reparations? I want to just go back as a matter of clarification because the legislation was pretty explicit. If you go back and look at the bill that was passed overwhelmingly by the legislature, it talked about determining amounts of payment, criteria for payment, identifying who shall be eligible for reparations payments in the manner of determining eligibility. So it wasn't just about scholarships and tax credits and investments in majority minority communities. Although, as Clay pointed out, that could have been a part of it. This was a bill that would have provided direct payments to Maryland's black population based upon historical wrongs. And I want to just say that the governor has a different constituency than the legislature. The legislature has been gerrymandered in such a way that these are overwhelmingly Democratic districts, and the only way a lawmaker can realistically be unhorsed is in a Democratic primary from his or her left. The governor has a much larger geographic, political, and philosophical constituency he needs to be attended to. So I think that accounts for the difference between how he approaches it and how the legislature approaches it.
If I could just interject 1 second, Len, I think this was a larger danger for the governor. This would have created a record. It would have created record with meetings and recommendations, and it would have put a record in front of the governor that he would have to respond to. And that's a major reason why I think he didn't want any part of this.
Well, we'll have to leave it there. But Len, let me finish up with one of the more fun parts of our show, which is winners and losers.
Yes.
Who made the cut this week?
So my call for the winner is Maryland baseball. Okay, and I'm not talking about the Baltimore Orioles, who obviously are going in the wrong direction in a real hurry. I'm talking about the fact that two of our best athletic programs and two of our great universities, Johns Hopkins University and Salisbury University, will compete this Friday in the NCAA Super Regional round. And then should they advance past the Super Regionals, they will go to the College World Series, which is being held out in Ohio last week of May and into the first week of June. So for fans who are disgruntled with the listless performance of the Orioles, these games are affordable. These are true student athletes who are just as good in the classroom as they are on the diamond, and they could use your attention and they could use your support. Loser, Baltimore County Executive Kathy Klausmeyer. She undertook a very ill-fated effort to oust the Inspector General of Baltimore County, a remarkable public servant, Kelly Madigan, from her duties. This is a woman who has been really dedicated in her effort to hold people in elected office accountable for upholding a high standard of ethics. She has actually investigated a couple of county council members who have fallen short, and even has taken a look at the former executive's administration. So when Kathy tried to oust Kelly from her job, the public rose up, the county council rose up and said, no, we need these checks and balances. We need an ethics watchdog. We need Kelly Madigan. And it was a bad look for the county executive. It made her look somewhat unscrupulous, and the way that she was rebuffed, it kind of made her look weak. I hope she doesn't fall into any sand traps of this nature in the future.
Clayton, what's on your list this week?
I got to say, I want to agree with one thing Len said there is about the Johns Hopkins baseball program. I wish them all the luck in the world. I hope they go to the College World Series and win. I'm a fan of Johns Hopkins University, as Len knows, being in the Hop Start program and helping him out with some of his classes. So go Hopkins. My winner is ever since he went in front of his childhood home and announced an intention after some polling to run for governor, the buzz created by Ed Hale has caused some turbulence in the circles in politics. I think he's going to be a real force to deal with. The governor's going to face opposition from his own party and the Republican Party. And I think Ed Hale is my winner this week. Loser is because of the loss of our AAA bond rating is Wes Moore, Speaker Jones, and Bill Ferguson. They didn't heed the warnings from over a year ago that they were on negative watch. Taking into consideration everything Len said, the state spending is still out of control, and I think because Wall Street saw that, the state was punished for it.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Len Foxwell, Clayton Mitchell, thanks a lot. I'll see you guys next week.